Chapter 13, Chapter 12, The Depraved Cafe. Chapter 12, The Depraved Cafe. Morning, sunshine, Cat greeted Ryu cheerfully as he pried himself off the ground, yawned and stretched. As usual, she was the first one up, and already had coffee brewing over the campfire while she did her morning exercises.
We're probably going to need this.
Probably, Ryu agreed, walking over to sit down next to her. The sun was still in the process of rising, and birds were chirping, but there wasn't a monster to be seen.
No breakfast. Knowing what we're going into.
Cat made a face and held her stomach.
Best to skip it today. Better to go hungry than to waste good food if we're not going to be able to keep it for long. You didn't need to put it that way.
Ryu winced.
Suppose you've got a point, though. Let's just hope that's as bad as it gets. What could be worse than that?
She asked, raising an eyebrow and sitting down to start doing some crunches.
Easy,
Sten told her as he joined them.
It's not as bad as we're afraid it'll be, we don't feel sick, and the food there smells really good. You wouldn't,
Ryu said, half joking.
Hell no.
Sten snorted.
But I'd be tempted. So would you, I'd bet. And she'd be the worst out of all of us. You've seen the way she attacks dinner after a long day on the road. How the hell do you stay in shape like that after eating that much? Did you think I do all this anytime we're not busy with something else because it's fun?
Cat pointed out, finishing her crunches and standing back up.
And I'd kick you for that comment, but it's too early. I'll just put it on your tab. Why am I the only one who gets a tab?
Sten complained, sniffing the air.
Sounds like the coffee's just about done. Who says you are?
She shot back, pulling some battered tin cups out of their packs.
I don't know what you're all talking about, and I don't want to,
Rand grumbled, half dragging himself over to join them.
I smell coffee, though. Gimme. Yeah, I'm going,
Cat muttered, pouring for all of them and handing the cups out.
Hey, Nina. Coffee's up. That's all I needed to hear,
the Wing clanswoman said sleepily, stirring from the ground. As she started to float over towards them, she paused suddenly, glancing to the west, before continuing over to sit with them. Taking a cup from Cat, she sipped at it before speaking again.
Not that it's cause for concern, but we're not the only ones out here. There's a Menero clansman about 50 feet that way. Orange scales, elderly, looks like a traveling salesman. Probably is, then.
Sten shrugged.
There's plenty of them swimming around the world, after all. So long as they can take care of themselves against the ocean monsters, no reason not to if they don't feel like settling down somewhere. We should probably just ignore him unless anybody wants to buy something. At the kinds of prices those guys tend to run.
Rand snorted.
Not likely. Maybe.
Ryu frowned thoughtfully, looking east. There, on the coastline, a Menero clansman was indeed seated, watching the waves. A familiar-looking one.
Or maybe not. Hey, Gobit. Gobit, that you over there? Hey.
The fishman glanced over at them, and after a moment, he grinned.
Hey, you're that kid I met over near Corsair. The ranger. Ryu, right? Good to see you again. Who are these mugs? Wait.
He stroked his chin thoughtfully as he walked over towards them, then pointed at Cat.
I'll be damned. You really did hook up with that fighting girl. Wrong,
Cat drawled.
At the moment, anyways. Things got a little too hot in Corsair for my tastes, so when this guy offered me a new line of work, I took him up on it. As you can see, he's not the only one. Take it you two have met before. Sold me this on my way north,
Ryu explained, tapping the helmet resting on top of his pile of gear at the moment. He had suited up after the coffee had kicked in. Catching Cat's eye, he nodded very slightly, and she produced a cup for their guest.
Gave me some pretty good advice on what was going on in Corsair, too. When I heard about what went down around there, I figured I got out just in time,
Gobi grunted.
Sounds like I was right. You have no idea,
Rand agreed.
The authorities didn't get too excited, did they? Way I heard it, there's a couple folks down under wanted for questioning, but that's nothing in Corsair.
Gobi shrugged.
If they really wanted them, it'd be a lot more than that. Year from now, nobody'll even remember it.
He winked.
I won't ask why you guys wanted to know. Appreciated,
Sten deadpanned.
No charge,
he shot back.
If I didn't know better, I'd suggest you guys were a pro outfit instead of a bunch of folks helping a friendly neighborhood ranger out. Usually not the best idea to piss people like that off. We prefer the term adventurers, actually,
Ryu said lightly.
And it's starting to look like this one's going to be my last assignment for the guild. A lot's changed while I've been on this job. Same one you were on back at Corsair.
Gobi raised an eyebrow.
Sounds like one hell of a long job, kid. We've almost got it wrapped up now.
Kat glanced at Nina.
You feeling okay? You're awful quiet this morning. More than usual, I mean. I was about to say,
she replied coolly.
I'm still waking up, is all. I'll save the sales pitch until you're finished with that, then,
Gobi joked. At least, Ryu thought he was joking.
No, by all means, feel free.
Nina shook her head.
Might as well get it out of the way, right? Ouch.
Gobi clutched his chest.
You wound me, madam. And after I was getting ready to inform you of these marvelous enchanted robes I have in stock, perfect for those with rough lines of work but find too much armor a little too rough. They're the standard for witches. Only 3,000 zeni each. Witches, hey?
Sten asked calmly as the others all coughed at the price.
Let me guess, you laid in a stock because you heard about that class reunion and figured you would be able to make a killing at it. You heard about that too, hey?
Gobi chuckled.
Yeah, okay, guilty as charged. I didn't do as well as I thought I would with those, so I've still got some stock I need to sell off. They're up north, at the Wildcat Cafe, that's the only reason I'm out here in the ass end of nowhere, Sima. Bit of a risky place to do business, but the profit's usually worth it. Not this time, though.
He sighed heavily.
Oh well, them's the breaks. Nobody ever promised us easy, right?
Rand nodded sympathetically.
Story of our lives too, buddy. You can say that again,
Ryu agreed.
Tell you what, Gobi. Those robes sound a little out of our price range, but I'm sure you've got something we'd be interested in. If you could maybe give us some information on that Wildcat Cafe. As it just so happens, that's the reason we're all the way out here, too.
The look Gobi gave him was indescribable.
Not like that,
Kat said quickly.
We need to have a little talk with one of those witches at that reunion.
Gobi slowly nodded.
Okay, that makes a little more sense. Didn't think you looked like the kinds of guys who... Well, never mind that. No,
Nina murmured.
What else do you have? Well, I've got a couple bastard swords.
Gobi scratched his chin.
Personally speaking, I figure they might suit you better than that huge thing, but that's just me, kid. 2,200 zeni each, if you want to check them out. Got some more helmets, too, even better than the Windian Army standard I sold you last time. Don't ask me how, but I actually managed to find a seller for Highlander Army surplus, and believe me, those folks are ahead of the game when it comes to military equipment. 1,800 each for those babies. Highlander Nation helmets.
Sten repeated, looking intrigued.
And they're the real thing? Not some knockoffs. See for yourself, buddy.
Gobi rummaged through the packs on his back and produced a rounded helmet with a frontal plate in lieu of direct facial protection and a spike on its crown.
Does this look like a knockoff to you? Can't say that it does,
Sten admitted, tapping it with one long finger.
Alright, buddy. I'll take one. Pleasure doing business with you.
Gobi handed over the helmet in exchange for some of Sten's zeni, which he quickly pocketed.
Now then, about the Wildcat Cafe. Won't be able to help you much with that class reunion I just went in to sell and then got out, but there's 3 things to keep in mind about the establishment itself. Let's hear 'em, then,
Ryu said, then frowned.
Wait. The reunion's been going on for a while now already? It's not over, is it? Nah, I left an hour ago and they were still going at it real strong.
Gobi chuckled.
The Wildcat Cafe doesn't exactly keep normal hours. Anyways. Rule number 1, don't piss off the bouncers. You'll lose, no matter how good you are. Rule number 2, the rest of the staff are a different story, just be polite to them, and you would not believe how much shit they'll forgive you for. And rule number 3. When they ask you how you want your food cooked, tell them you want it rare. Trust me on this one. Sounds like good advice all around to me,
Rand grunted.
Thanks, buddy. Anytime.
Gobi finished his coffee and stood up.
Well, nice selling to you again, but I've got to get going. Need to meet the guy down at Whale Cape in a couple of days, and it's a long swim. Where are you guys going to be operating out of, anyways? I'll recommend you if I run into anybody who needs to hire some folks. Southern Oria, west of Mount Phoebe,
Ryu told him, smiling.
And thanks. We appreciate the good word. Anything for a valued customer.
Gobi winked, waving as he walked off.
Alright, what's really bothering you?
Kat asked Nina again once he was gone.
Nice try, but you wake up faster than any of us once you get up. Something just struck me as curious, is all,
Nina murmured, looking thoughtful.
Gobit. That's not a very common name. Wasn't he some hero from the Second Dragon War?
Sten recalled.
One of your namesakes.
He slowly trailed off.
Oh. Indeed.
Nina nodded.
A Menero clansman, with orange scales. That's one of the rarest colors for them to have, you know. It couldn't actually be him,
Rand scoffed.
Yeah, he's obviously been around for a while, but 1,000 years? Nobody lives that long, except for the legendary sorceress herself. Somehow, I doubt that's something even she could just teach a friend of hers. I know,
she conceded.
I didn't say he was. It's just one of those things that's curious, I suppose. A strange feeling about him. Remnant traces of some very unusual magic. I wish I was able to tell what exactly it was. That's a bit weird, yeah,
Ryu admitted.
Or at least I imagine. Just something to keep in mind, then. More or less.
She finished her own cup.
Were we going to get this rather unpleasant task over with, then? Oh, hell yes,
Kat agreed.
The sooner the better. Can't argue with that,
Sten said, starting to clean up. The Wildcat Cafe was, as Patabe had told them, located in a cliffside cave on the west coast of Sima, near the Simon Falls that poured down towards the lake. There were no doors, but a brass plate had been installed over the cave mouth advertising its contents. Ryu and the others didn't even glance at it as they walked inside. The bouncer sitting behind a nice wooden desk flanked by 5 wooden doors at the end of the tunnel, however, was another story. He was almost as big as Rand, and carried enough muscle for an entire sports team, made obvious by the fact that he was wearing only a green, extremely brief, and tight swimsuit and a matching bow tie. His head was bald, and his grin sparkling white. To Ryu, it was an unfortunately familiar sight, one he had hoped he'd never have to see again.
Good evening.
The bouncer boomed cheerfully.
4-5, then. Yes.
Ryu nodded.
Hey, check it out.
Kat was whispering to Rand.
Remember Andre, back at the Colosseum in Corsair? I know, right.
Rand muttered back.
Small world. I'm afraid we're rather busy at the moment,
the bouncer continued, looking apologetic.
A class of witches is having a reunion right now. We'll still be able to serve you, of course, but our staff is a little swamped. We understand,
Ryu replied, trying to keep a straight face.
We'll be fine. Good.
He beamed.
Now then, we here at the Wildcat restaurant have no objections to violence, but we do require that it be kept at a reasonable level. I'm afraid that I'll have to ask you to leave your equipment here at the desk, it will be returned to you when you leave. Excuse me.
Kat growled, the others looking similarly irritated.
Just what kind of idiots do you take us for, buddy? I'm sorry, but rules are rules.
The bouncer rang a bell on his desk, and all of the doors but one opened, revealing 4 identical brutes who approached.
If you can't follow protocol, we'll have to ask you to leave the premises. Guys.
Sten suggested quietly.
I vote we do what the nice gentlemen are asking. Don't think we're gonna win this one. Yeah, okay.
Ryu gave in.
Come on, it's the only way we're getting in here.
Muttering and grumbling, the group removed their armor, keeping only the clothes they wore under it, and placed it all in a box the lead bouncer indicated, along with their weapons.
Excellent.
The man behind the desk grinned again, as if the dispute had never taken place at all.
Now then, one last thing. How would you like your meat cooked? Rare all around?
Ryu asked, trying to make it sound casual, prompting nods.
Thought so. Rare it is. Ah.
The bouncer's smile didn't fade, but his eyes narrowed slightly.
Have you, by any chance, eaten here before? First time,
Ryu said quickly, cutting off what he knew would be an angry retort by Cat.
Why? Can we not get it rare here? No, that's not a problem at all,
the bouncer assured him.
It's simply... Well, it's probably not a concern. Go right in, please, and seat yourselves. Last door on the right.
He nodded at the only one that hadn't produced an additional bouncer.
Thought you said this place was run by guys who had been kicked out of your clan,
Sten commented to Kat as they walked past.
It's only one family.
She shrugged.
Guess they hire help for the rough stuff.
To absolutely nobody's surprise, walking through the door brought them to a gigantic cooking grill suspended over a pit. Shooting weary glances amongst themselves, they walked out to the center of it, watched the doors on both ends slam and lock, and waited.
Here we go,
Cat grunted as burners on the sides of the room activated, raising the temperature to a painful amount almost immediately.
About time. Try flying above the metal,
Ryu suggested to Nina as they began dancing around painfully.
Might spare yourself. No good,
she pointed out, wincing as she shuffled her feet.
There's flames up on the ceiling, too. I can't fly without touching those. Remind me again why we couldn't just wait for the witch to come back home and go back there again.
Rand complained before stumbling and falling back onto his ass.
Yow. Because that would be too easy.
Sten snarled, rolling around to keep his fur from catching fire.
We never get easy. Tail. Hey.
Cat blinked, then yelped and began slapping at hers.
Ack. I'm about 10 seconds away from summoning up some wild ice magic, and to hell with what happens,
Nina said darkly.
9, 8. Wait,
Sten told her quickly.
It's cooling off. Anybody else feel that? Oh, yeah.
Ryu sighed, then winced.
Ow, that hurts. Rand. 5 healing spells coming right up,
Rand agreed, and one by one, glowing magic covered them.
Much better.
Nina smiled, but there was no joy in it.
Now then, who do we discuss this with? Time to see if the cooking is done yet.
A voice called from the other side of the far door on cue, speaking in an obviously affected Simon accent. A moment later, the door opened, revealing a decidedly stout Warren clansman. Unlike Cat, his entire body was covered in golden fur, but he kept it trimmed very short, likely in order to be able to comfortably wear a white chef's outfit over it, complete with apron and belt full of kitchen knives. He was grinning cheerfully, and he wore a long, wire-thin, elaborately curled mustache dyed black. Seeing them, he blinked.
Hey, what's this? This isn't cooked at all. You the proprietor of this establishment?
Ryu asked ominously, cracking his knuckles.
We have a few issues with your service.
The others flanked him, and they advanced slowly.
Ah.
The wildcat began to slowly back away, then brandished a huge meat cleaver.
Well then, I'll just cut up some sushi, and...
He grunted as Nina's ice magic projectile slammed into his gut, dropping the blade. Before he could recover it or draw another, Cat drew back and laid a right hook right on his mouth that spun him around backwards. Vaulting over them both, Sten twisted in the air and kicked him back around to receive another punch, this one from Rand, that pounded him down so hard he actually bounced off of the grill.
You want heat?
Ryu growled, starting to wool himself into dragon form. Unfortunately, the wildcat had other ideas. Digging into his apron, he produced a handful of black powder that he blew into the air, stinging their eyes and forcing them to cough and choke.
Wildcat family, secret art.
The chef crowed.
Blinding pepper. Au revoir. He's hack gone, isn't he?
Ryu asked as they all bent over.
Yeah, but he'll still be in there,
Sten pointed out.
Let's go get out of here.
Rubbing at their eyes, they walked out of the cooking room and on into the restaurant proper. Now that they were actually inside, it looked much more like any other eatery they had seen. It wasn't even a dive, but instead had all the appearance of a high-class restaurant. Everything was hardwood, with pleasant decor on and around the tables and booths, which were cushioned in red, chandeliers hung overhead, and candles burned on tabletop as well. There were even flowers growing out of jars, and tapestries and paintings hung on the walls. All of this made the clientele seem even more bizarre. As they had expected, the majority of them were witches, all of them pink-haired and beautiful like Nimufo, rather than being alluring. However, the sheer number of them made their identicality seem disturbing instead. There were Kimoto and ogres, along with other outcast clans, scattered here and there. A group of unsavory-looking creeper clansmen had a booth in a corner, and a pair of equally nasty wing clansmen sat at the bar. A scattering of humans, male and female, filled out the population.
Easy,
Ryu murmured to Nina, seeing her eyes flash.
We're not here to pick any more fights than we have to. Let's just find Nimufo and get out. Hey, that chef's coming back over here,
Rand pointed out. The wildcat they'd encountered was indeed approaching them from behind the counter somewhat hesitantly, flanked by two more, who looked just as concerned.
Guess he wants to talk to us. You guys go ahead,
Sten muttered, slipping away before they could object.
I'll ask around about Nimufo. Excuse me, monsieur,
the lead chef said quietly.
I hope we have not given offense. You all seemed, well, very angry back there. I assure you, it was nothing personal. Simply the way we operate here. You understand, yes? Just the way.
Ryu started to growl, then paused, taking a deep breath, remembering Gava's advice about being polite.
Let me guess. Cook the weak people, serve the strong people, right? Have to prove you're tough to get in here or else you're on the menu. Our policy in simplified form, yes.
The wildcat nodded quickly.
You're very understanding people, aren't you? Most would take this kind of thing badly, no matter the circumstances, but you're professionals, yes? You don't hold grudges over business, right?
They all smiled nervously, so worried that it was almost pitiful.
We'll get over it,
Rand said after an awkward moment.
It's not going to happen again, right? Of course.
They all nodded.
You've proven yourselves, and our bouncers have excellent memories. They'll wave you through in the future. Then we're square,
Ryu gave in.
We were just making a point ourselves, when you get right down to it. Business is like that, you know. Ah, of course.
The wildcat's eyes widened in understanding.
A reputation to uphold, yes? This explains everything. Good, good. I'm so glad we were able to work this out amicably. There must be something more we can do, to make this all up to you.
He paused, glancing at Kat.
Ah, a young lady of the clan our family once belonged to. Yeah.
Kat growled, clearly not feeling as forgiving as the others but doing her best to keep it under control.
So what? There is a secret technique our family knows,
the wildcat said in a low, conspiratorial voice.
You may have heard of it, yes. Wait.
Kat blinked.
You mean the chop chop style? Chop chop.
Ryu muttered under his breath.
Seriously?
Nina hushed him.
Indeed.
The wildcat continued.
Only those who possess the breath of spirit can perform it, which is a shame, since we are very proud of it. Here, come with me, and I will show you the trick.
The three of them turned and walked towards the bar. Once they had reached it, the head chef pulled a live beak out of a crate, bound with rope, and laid it on a cutting board before producing his cleaver again.
Watch closely now.
What happened next was difficult to describe. The wildcat held his knife over the monster, motionless for a second, and then it seemed to blur, vibrating strangely as if it was moving in every direction at once while remaining absolutely motionless at the same time. There was a flash of movement towards the beak, and then it fell apart into thin, even slices, blood draining neatly without even a splash. The wildcat's knife was completely clean.
Holy shit,
Ryu managed to say after a moment. Nina and Rand both nodded in agreement.
I get it,
Kat said slowly.
At least. I think I do. I never would have thought of doing that myself, but... Yeah, I think I know what it was. How many cuts was that? 47 is my best record,
the wildcat replied modestly.
They're all light, of course, so there are limits to its usability in combat, but in certain situations. Yeah, no kidding.
Kat slowly grinned.
Yeah. I'm gonna have to practice it, of course, but I'll be able to get it down. Thanks. You guys are okay. Glad to oblige.
The wildcat flourished his knife.
Drinks, then? Let me guess, ale all around.
He winked.
Wine for me, thanks,
Nina corrected him.
Of course.
The wildcat nodded.
Coming right up. Drinks should be fine, right?
Kat muttered, rejoining them.
Yeah, but we'll want to slip out before they ask us what we want to order,
Ryu murmured back.
Let's just sit at the bar and wait for Sten to come back. Right here, Chief,
Sten chimed in from his left.
Bad news. Seems Nimuf's been worshipping the porcelain goddess for the last hour. She's still in there, and even in this place, we ain't getting in.
Nina and Kat exchanged a long glance.
We'll be back,
the princess told them as they turned towards the rear.
Keep our drinks for us. We'll likely need them. Sucks to be them,
Ryu muttered, and the other three all nodded sympathetically. Taking their mugs when they came, they leaned back on the bar stools and looked around the restaurant casually, trying not to let their gaze linger. As bizarre as it was on appearance, the Wildcat Cafe did have a certain anarchic charm once one relaxed a little. There was clearly no species bias whatsoever, anything and anybody would be welcome so long as they upheld the strange rules present. At one booth, an ogre clansman had his arms around two witches, all of them laughing. To their left, two Kimoto were languidly sipping at their ale, forked tongues dipping into it. More witches had approached the two wing clansmen, and were apparently charming them into a semblance of a good mood. Some musicians had started playing a catchy tune, mainly based on horn instruments.
We need to get out of here once we're done,
Ryu muttered under his breath as 4 mugs and a wineglass were handed over.
Something about this place is messing with my head. What, starting to think it's not so bad.
Sten joked, elbow on the bar as he surveyed the clientele.
Yeah,
Rand grunted, taking a big swig of his ale.
And considering what I know about this place, I'd rather not. At least they're honest about it.
Sten shrugged.
I've seen worse, trust me. As far as supposed cesspools go, this one is our speed, I'd say. Maybe that's what's getting to me,
Ryu agreed dubiously, paying the bartender.
The fact that we don't look out of place here at all. We fit right in. And if we got drunk enough to be stupid about it, I can't honestly say some of us wouldn't try ordering, just out of curiosity. I'm not sure I like what that says about us. That we're hardly pillars of society.
Sten shrugged.
Call it what you like, boss, but in the end, we're mercs. Other people pay us to go do violent things. It's the life we chose, and as long as we're living it, tidy little eateries near the schools and formal parties with all the hobnobs in town aren't gonna look right if we're there. The issue of what exactly is on the menu aside, this is where mugs like us belong. With the ogres and the Kimoto, hey.
Rand frowned.
With the motley crew who don't fit in anywhere else,
Sten corrected him.
I'm no fan of either clan either, but looking at it logically, the ones who come around here to socialize with folks like us probably aren't the worst of the worst. If it was just the food, they could get it themselves. And usually do, from what I've heard,
Rand grumbled.
There used to be an entire city like this, actually,
Ryu said thoughtfully.
Named Bleak, way up in the mountains of Oria. City of thieves, outcasts, and vagabonds. Some people actually think that those ruins we're operating out of used to be it. Really?
Sten scratched his chin.
I've heard of Bleak too. Wasn't it supposed to be east of hometown? With how often some earthquakes rearranged the world map, that doesn't mean all that much,
Rand pointed out.
I have to admit, though, that actually sounds like an interesting idea. Wouldn't want it to catch on everywhere, but one lawless city that doesn't give a shit about the 3 laws and just looks after its own. Well, maybe the world could use some place like that. Shame the world doesn't seem to be that kind of place anymore.
Ryu sighed, and the other two nodded.
Oh, I don't know about that,
another man said, sitting down next to Ryu and accepting a tankard of ale from the cook. It was another Warren, but one who looked far different from the Wildcat family. His fur was golden and shaggy, and his facial features more obviously feline than either Cat's or the staff's. He wore only a blue vest, thankfully, like Cat, the fur on his body was long and thick enough to keep him decent.
Sorry to interrupt, but I've actually heard there's a place like that being started up down in southern Oria. Your homeland, right, blue hair?
He gestured at Ryu with his mug.
You've got the accent. Yeah.
Ryu nodded.
Hadn't heard about that, myself, but it's been a while since I've been back there. Well, it's apparently just a recent thing,
the Warren continued.
West of Mount Phoebe. I've been meaning to take the boys down there and see what it's like, myself, for a while now. Figured I might as well give some fellows in the same line of business the heads up in case you would be interested. Professional courtesy, you know. Merc.
Ryu guessed, ignoring the strange looks on Rand's and Sten's faces, and the Warren nodded.
Should have known somebody else in the business would be hanging around here. Is it that obvious? Maybe not to normal folks, but to somebody who's been doing it for a whole.
The Warren winked one bright yellow eye.
You might as well have a sign on your heads.
Putting his mug down for a moment, he offered a hand.
Tiga Lee. Ryu Battison, he replied, shaking his hand. How's business around here? We're not regulars, just came to hunt down a target. Me either.
Tiga shrugged.
I'm only here to meet up with a client. This is a good place to arrange a head-to-head if it's the kind of business you want to be even more careful than usual about. One nice thing about this place, nobody's gonna care what you're up to.
He chuckled.
If you're as hungry as you guys look, you can always just order a salad, you know. We're heading off as soon as the girls get back,
Ryu explained.
Fair enough.
Tiga leaned back, arms on the bar.
We tend to run out of the Isle of Guns most of the time. It's nice and relaxed, but the only trouble is you don't get too many visitors, so clients are a bit tricky to come by. If this new place really is all that, we might relocate down there. You guys. Some ruins west of Mount Phoebe.
Sten shrugged.
Bit of a fixer-upper, but you can't beat the price.
They all waited as the light slowly dawned on Tiga's face.
Yeah, I don't know what that rumor's about, but we don't know about any town starting up down there.
Ryu chuckled.
Pretty sure we'd have noticed. Guess so.
Tiga grinned cheerfully.
Oh well, scratch that one up to bad gossip. Let me guess, going for the whole Explorers of the Lost theme? That one usually sells pretty well. We're running the reckless, violent savages look ourselves. Might limit your client base a little, but it's worth it for the prices the extra intimidation value gets out of the rest, I take it.
Ryu guessed, not bothering to correct him, the best description he would probably be able to come up with for their look was punk bum. And that wasn't exactly marketable.
Got it in one,
Tiga agreed.
Pretty sharp. Surprised I haven't heard of you guys before, you seem like you've got a good grip on the business.
He trailed off.
Wait a second. Battison. That mess up in Capitan a couple weeks back. That was us, all right.
Sten made a face.
Pain in the ass, but if it's working for our rep, maybe it was almost worth it. You guys are the talk of the trade right now, man.
Tiga whistled.
That story's everywhere. Some bunch of newcomers nobody's ever heard of mop the floor with a bunch of freaks most guys charge top price for. We're just getting off the ground,
Ryu admitted.
Can't really run that until we're established. It's going pretty well so far, though. Hey, wait.
He blinked.
Tiga Lee. Are you with the Renegades? Word's even getting out as far as Oria.
Tiga laughed appreciatively.
Hope it's all good. Yeah, that's us, all right. I've heard a few things,
Ryu replied, then slowly grinned.
Story about the Isle of Tunlin, for one. Oh, shit.
Tiga covered his eyes.
Come on, man, don't bring that one up. We're trying to put it behind us. I smell something good,
Sten said, grinning wickedly.
Come on, boss, what's this all about? Maybe I shouldn't,
Ryu joked.
Professional courtesy, and all. What do you think, Rand? Hey.
Glancing over at the big man, he frowned, an extremely drunk-looking witch appeared to be accosting him, which explained why he hadn't been taking much part in the conversation.
Come on, baby,
the witch slurred.
I'm having fun. Aren't you? And nothing makes it more fun than a good fight. Ma'am, I'm sorry, but I'm really not that kind of guy.
Rand attempted to shove her away gently, and failed.
Please, just go away. What if I don't want to go away, hey?
She pouted theatrically.
You gonna make me? I'd be down with that. Hey, what's all this?
Tiga leaned out and looked the witch over, then smiled.
Don't see too many girls who don't mind playing rough like that. I think I like what I'm hearing. Glad to see somebody's a real man around here, she purred, giving Rand a dismissive glance before wobbling around to Tiga. You like a little rumble after a few too, big guy. Nothing like it.
Tiga finished his ale and set the mug down.
A little crowded in here, though, don't you think? Why don't we step outside for a moment and have some fun? She smiled. Sounds good to me. You're pretty cute, you know. Maybe after that, we can have a little more fun. Why don't we talk about that?
Tiga suggested, getting up. Wrapping their arms around each other, the two of them moved towards the exit, and he looked over his shoulder.
See you around again someday, guys. Good luck. Thanks, man,
Ryu called.
you too. Oh, you won.
Ran shouted, then dropped his voice.
Sheesh. Boy, am I glad the girls weren't here to see that one. I'd never live it down. Speak of the devil,
Sten glanced towards the back.
Here they come.
Kat and Nina were indeed threading their way through the crowd now, both of them looking disgusted. For some reason, they were wet, as if they had just showered without getting undressed. Most of the other patrons wisely moved out of their way, but one drunken human male made the mistake of making a grab for Kat's arm. Instead, he received her fist in his face, and fell back onto his table, much to the amusement of his friends.
Do not ask us what just happened in there,
she growled warningly as they joined them. Both girls regarded their drinks for a moment, then drained them in one go.
Bad.
Rand guessed.
She said not to ask,
Nina replied coldly.
She meant it. You got the ring, though, right?
Sten pressed.
Yes, we got the ring,
Kat snarled with biting sarcasm, handing Ryu a piece of hideously gaudy jewelry identical to Petape's. It was wet as well, and he wisely chose not to ask why.
And now that we have the ring, we are going to get one more refill on our drinks, because we both need it, and then we're getting out of this place before I actually do just say to infinity with it and order something after all, because if one more thing pisses me off, I might just take a bite out of whoever it is.
On cue, her stomach growled loudly.
Told you she'd be the first one to crack,
Sten pointed out, and received a kick in the back of the head for his opinion. The bouncers were just as courteous as before when they walked out and retrieved their gear, and didn't ask for any details. They didn't see Tika or the witch outside, but that was probably for the best, all things considered. They did, however, quickly run into a belligerent bear, which Kat dispatched quickly with somewhat unnecessary violence. Everybody seemed to feel better after they had eaten, although Nina and Kat still refused to explain just what exactly it was they'd had to do to recover the ring. The trip back towards Lake Sima was as long and uneventful as their voyage to the cafe had been. The boat was still tied to the lakeside pier, fortunately, and they made their way back to Sima Fort without any trouble. Hiding it at the dock where Petape had, they slipped behind some crates and waited to see if anybody came out. Nobody did.
Guess they didn't see us coming in,
Ryu said eventually.
Alright, we need to find Jean and Petape. Where would she be hiding him? If she's even gotten him out of the cell by now, you mean,
Sten joked.
Come on, man.
Kat elbowed him.
It's been 2 weeks. She's got to have talked him out of there by now, right?
They all thought about it for a moment.
Let's get going,
Rand said with a heavy sigh, and they all nodded. Creeping down the water-filled tunnels back to the prison, they walked over to the last cell and looked inside. It was empty.
Well, hell, we were wrong. PSST.
Petape's voice came from another cell.
Over here.
Glancing at it, they saw her open the cell door and wave them inside quickly. The walls inside were covered with Jean's paintings. He appeared to be working on another at the moment.
I managed to talk him into moving to this one since the light's better. Believe it or not, the guards never even thought to check the other cells once they noticed he was gone. We really need to improve our hiring policy. Under the circumstances, I can live with it,
Ryu told her, producing the ring and tossing it to their friend.
Here you go, Jean. Catch. Ah.
Jean snatched it out of the air before even turning to look at them.
Merci beaucoup. As my sister said, I have been just fine. A good friend of mine named Salvatore has been bringing me food and water. A most talented artist, by the way, fully as skilled with stone and statue as I with paint and canvas. But at any rate, I owe you all many thanks. Ah, it is so good to see my ring again.
He looked down at it, eyes distant.
But it was the only way I could think of to express my feelings for her. Tell me honestly, did she take it hard when you asked for it back? I think she'll get over it, Jean,
Nina said cautiously.
Say no more, mademoiselle.
Jean clutched the ring to his heart.
She has found another already, has she not?
Taking a deep breath, he began to sing. To Ryu's surprise, he actually wasn't too bad.
Ah, the end of an inept love. Stop it, stop it, stop it.
Petape yelled at him.
This is no time to be singing. We have to go confront the imposter, right now. Ah, little sister.
Jean paused, turning to her with a calm smile.
It's not good to be so stressed. Here, my singing will help calm you.
Ryu and his friends all wisely averted their eyes until the violent noises had died down.
As I was saying, this is no time for singing,
Patabe continued as if Jean hadn't interrupted.
We have to go confront the imposter, right now.
She marched out past them, towards the stairs.
You okay, man?
Ryu asked Jean. He had a black eye now, and several lumps on his head.
I am, how you say? Used to it.
He shrugged.
My dear little sister is overly excitable, I think. Ah, but perhaps she has a point. Let us go to see my father. Think we'll have any trouble, boss?
Sten asked quietly as they walked towards Patabe, who was waiting for them at the stairs, tapping her feet.
Not as long as we stick with her, and talk fast.
Ryu shrugged.
If we do, handle it, but don't kill anybody. That guard was bad enough, we'll just have to hope nobody puts 2 and 2 together and connects us to that. Oh, yeah.
Cat winced.
Might not look too good, hey. It could be worse,
Nina said dryly.
We could have taken the corpse with us to sell to the Wildcat Cafe. That's not funny,
Rand grumbled.
Sorry.
The underwater tunnels brought them to a corner of the throne room. Patabe was the first to rise from the deep, followed by Jean. The other came after them, Ryu standing at Patabe's left while the other 4 flanked them. Ignoring the startled buzzing of the courtiers, they advanced down the center of the hall towards the fused assemblage of 3 thrones at the back, the central one set higher than the other 2. This was occupied by an elderly creeper with a long white beard and scales the same bright blue as the impostor princes, clad in regal red robes and a heavy-looking golden crown. He appeared to be asleep.
Kawadara, Kawadara.
The prince growled from his seat on the king's left. He looked the same as he had when they had met him before, but there was something subtly different in his eyes now.
What is this, dear sister? Explain yourself, immediately. I'm no sister of yours, villain,
Patabe replied coldly, obviously aware of every eye in the room on her.
My brother stands here at my side. Ah, Patabe.
The prince sighed deeply.
Another of your games? I'm sure you're very amused, but this is no matter for play. Can't you see how it saddens me to see you so behaving in such a manner? Let alone what you're doing to this poor wretch, by perpetuating his madness.
His eyes turned to Ryu.
And you? What business have you here, in Sima Fort? I thought you wiser men, than to defy my request so. We got hired for a job, your highness.
Ryu shrugged.
By the princess. And we don't tell our employers what to tell us to do. Understandable, if a bit disappointing,
the prince said coolly.
Then the blame for this disturbance lies solely on the shoulders of this impostor, who has somehow deceived my dear sister.
He stared at Jean, who met his gaze with a shrug and a smile.
Foolishness alone, I could forgive, but for this, I will see you dealt with in a more permanent fashion. Bring it on, impostor.
Patabe yelled.
Let's see if you've got the balls to face the real prince with your sword. Jean will tear you apart and throw the pieces into the lake. Ah, sister.
Jean protested mildly.
There is no need for such language, especially from a maiden such as yourself.
Patabe promptly demonstrated her vocabulary at further length, causing every courtier in the room to draw back, eyes wide. The king snored.
He's kind of got a point, your highness,
Ryu said cautiously. The others stayed quiet, apparently content to let him act as their representative for the moment.
It's up to you, of course, but if you'll take my advice, it might be best to just do this calmly. I'm afraid, young man, that calm is hardly my little sister's specialty.
The prince laughed, but there was no humor in the hideous sound. It was like he had known how to laugh, long ago, but hadn't done so in such a long time that he had forgotten how entirely.
Why should I face him in combat? Every man and woman in Sima Fort knows me for Prince Ikaro, whereas this madman only has his own, obviously unreliable word and the whims of a silly young girl to speak for him. Oh, does he?
Patabe smirked triumphantly.
You won't be so smug for long, you snake. Show them, Jean. Show them the royal ring, of the royal family. The proof that you are the true prince of Sima Fort. Ah, oui.
Jean held his hand up displaying the royal ring, and a gasp ran through the courtiers.
Here is my ring. Well?
Patabe demanded.
Who's the impostor now? What do you say to that? Amazing.
The prince murmured, eyes fixed on the ring. His voice was still calm, and his manner relaxed, and that set all of Ryu's nerves on edge.
I would say that he has managed to somehow find an amazingly accurate imitation.
He removed the glove from his right hand and raised it, and the torchlight glittered off of another ring, identical to Jean's.
What?
Patape's face crumpled inward.
No. How did you? How could you?
She checked her own hand quickly, then glanced at the sleeping king, whose hand bore a ring as well.
Where did you get that? Patape.
The prince's voice was artfully tragic.
Please, stop this foolishness. Haven't we all had enough at this point? No.
Patape recovered, turning and pointing at an elderly courtier with moss-green scales.
Your ring is the false one. I call upon the royal jeweler to examine both, and speak the truth. Come here, immediately. Ah.
The old creeper slowly approached, glancing at the prince.
Your Highness, my apologies, but there does seem to be reasonable doubt.
The courtiers were muttering amongst themselves now, glancing at both princes, clearly weighing the odds.
Very well.
The prince threw his ring at him angrily, and the heavy jewelry bounced off the old man's cheek, cutting it.
But don't be all day about it. We have important business to be about. The delegation from Evray will be arriving within the week, and we must be prepared to come to an agreement with them. From Evray?
Patape asked, stunned, as the jeweler held out his hand to Jean, who happily handed it over with the cheerful look of somebody who had stopped following the conversation at some previous point.
Why is the priesthood of Saint Eva coming to Sima Fort? Why was I not informed of this? Ah, sister, you waste all of our time with this foolishness, confuse the court with your silly games, and yet you ask why we do not bring you into the serious business of adults.
The prince said slyly.
It is long past time that Sima Fort accepted Saint Eva as our Lord and Savior. We must move with the times, or we will be lost to progress. Son of a bitch.
Ryu whispered under his breath, blood running cold, as he realized the impostor's plan.
Your Highness.
The jeweler coughed awkwardly.
I am afraid. I can detect no discrepancy between the two rings. Both appear to be genuine. Imbecile.
The prince roared suddenly, face contorted into a dreadful mask of fury, his accent had completely vanished.
What do we keep you around for, then? One of them has to be false. I should have you flayed and tied to the roof of Sima Fort under the sun without water. They are both real.
Patape whispered, shocked again.
That's impossible. Damn,
Sten hissed as the prince quickly composed himself.
If she had kept her head, we could have taken the advantage there. Looks like Buddy Boy's got quite a temper under that cold act. Forgive me, everybody,
the prince said quietly, speaking with a perfect Simon accent once more.
This foolishness is simply wearing upon my nerves. As I said, we do not have time for these games, Patape. If you continue, I will have no choice but to end this disturbance. Permanently.
He closed his eyes.
I have been merciful so far, due to this man's obvious insanity, but the penalty for impersonating a member of the royal family is death. Please, do not force me to carry that sentence out. You wouldn't,
Patape whispered.
Wouldn't I?
The prince replied, opening his eyes again and meeting her stare, cold and calm.
Hey.
The king said, stirring, and everybody's gaze turned to him.
What's going on here now? You're all too noisy. Father.
Patape dashed past a pair of guards up to the throne and seized his collar lightly.
Wake up. Can't you see what's going on, here? Your own son is suffering before your eyes, and you just sit there. Ah, Patape.
The king murmured.
Inform the head chef that I would like fly pudding for dessert at dinner, will you? Father, you fool.
Patape began to shake.
How can you talk about food, at a time like this? You. This could turn ugly, Ryu,
Nina warned him quietly.
I know,
he growled back.
Everybody. Patape.
The prince shouted suddenly.
That's quite enough. Our father is in very ill health. These games are one thing, but I cannot allow you to risk making his condition any worse. Release him. She gets it from her mother, you know.
The king leaned over to inform Ryu as Patape grudgingly stepped back.
She was even more scary, but Patape is. Who are you all again?
His eyes crossed.
Why are we hiring mercenaries? I'm hungry. Is that fly pudding ready yet? I ordered it hours ago.
Closing his eyes, he began to snore again.
Fly pudding, fly pudding.
Patabe was muttering quietly. Her eyes flew open suddenly, and she smacked a fist into her palm.
That's it. I know how we can prove who is my brother. Petape.
The prince said warningly, but she kept talking.
Everybody.
She turned to the courtiers.
You all know that my brother was famous for his cooking ability, yes? His skill was legendary in the kitchen. Especially his world-famous recipe for fly pudding. That is something that cannot be falsified.
Slowly, as if they simply wanted to see how this would play out, the courtiers began to nod and murmur agreement.
A cooking competition, then?
The prince asked slowly. After a long moment, he laughed again, and it was just as horrible as the first time.
Is that all it will take to convince you? My fly pudding? You should have said so sooner, dear sister. I'll be more than happy to cook anything you wish until you're satisfied. Cooking.
Jean brightened up as well, apparently having picked that out of the conversation.
It has been far too long since I practiced my art in the kitchen. I will be all too glad to prove myself in that manner, yes. What a fantastic idea from my brilliant sister. You can do it, Jean.
Patabe ran back over and seized his hands.
This is something you love to do. There's no way you can lose this way. For his sake, he had best hope not, the prince purred. My patience is at an end, Patabe. Once this farce is finished, he will be put to death, occupying an entire day of the court's valuable time. There is no more mercy I can give you. Hey, listen up, buddy.
Cat growled, then stopped as Rand put a cautious hand on her arm.
I would watch my tongue, if I were you,
the prince replied, shifting his gaze to them.
I am prince, here in Sima Fort, and my word is law. You are all clearly complicit in this ridiculousness. The death sentence can easily be extended to accomplices. We have no intention of violating the laws of Sima Fort, Your Highness,
Ryu said with forced calm.
However, I trust you will have no objections to our completing our contract with Princess Patabe, so long as we do so legally. If the impostor's cooking is so foul that he requires your assistance simply to pose a chance, then by all means, the prince shot back. Let it be a 3-course cooking competition, with assistance, then, and may the best man and his hired help win. You may have the run of Sima Fort until tomorrow night, when the results of the contest will be judged at a banquet before the court. I suggest you enjoy it while you can.
His voice took on an edge.
And now, if we may return to our actual business for the evening, since it seems there will be none tomorrow. Let's get out of here,
Ryu advised Patabe quietly.
There's nothing more we can do. Fine.
She snapped.
And you enjoy what time you have left, imposter. Tomorrow the truth will be revealed.
Turning around with a dramatic flourish of her skirts, she stalked towards the back of the hall, and courtiers melted out of her way. Shrugging, Ryu, Jean and the others followed her out of the throne room.
On the whole, I thought that went rather well.
Jean remarked happily.
Jean.
Patabe took a deep breath before continuing.
You do understand what you have to do, right? Just cook your best 3 dishes, and there'll be no way the imposter can match you. It should be easy for you. Is he really that good a cook?
Cat asked dubiously.
Even when he was a young boy,
Nina assured her.
He made sure to learn a few Windian dishes on his trip to the castle, and he cooked them all perfectly the very first time. His skill in the kitchen really is legendary. But there is one concern,
Jean said thoughtfully.
Will Sima Fort have the ingredients I require? A fly pudding, in particular. The contents are of the utmost importance. We must make haste to the kitchens, in order to investigate. Hey, if you need some rare ingredients, we could always try running them down for you,
Cat offered helpfully.
Here we go.
Rand sighed.
You are so kind to me, mon amis.
Jean proclaimed loudly, picking up his pace and running ahead of Patabe around a corner.
Here we are. You, my good man.
Leading them into a huge kitchen, he accosted a startled cook.
Quickly, check our food stocks, and see if we have all of these in stock.
He scribbled out a list and handed it to the cook, who nodded, somewhat confusedly, and ran off.
We going to have to worry about exotic ingredients in our dinner?
Sten asked as they leaned against a wall, ignoring the surprised muttering of the remaining chefs.
Or sharp objects in wherever we sleep tonight? You'll have the best guest bedrooms and cooking, of course,
Petabe told them.
I wouldn't worry. The imposter's been challenged, and the court is doubtful. He has to prove his strength to them, or they'll drag him under when he's least expecting it. We're not the only threat to him, the court is deadly enough in its own right.
She smiled bitterly.
I never thought the day would come that I'd be grateful for that. Here you are, your ER. Whoever you are.
The cook Jean had enlisted came running back, breathing heavily.
I've marked everything we had. Let me see here.
Jean surveyed the list, and his eyes widened in dismay.
Non, this is not good at all. What of the fresh bull red cockroach meat? You cannot tell me there is none. And the jumbo worm? That as well. We only have the blue at the moment,
the cook explained.
And the worm. We've got every size except jumbo. What in infinity is he going to cook?
Cat muttered, and the others shrugged.
I am glad you asked, Mademoiselle Cat.
Jean replied, apparently having heard her.
For the appetizer, I shall prepare a delicate cockroach and green onion salad. The main course shall be worm in caramel sauce, and for the dessert, of course, fly pudding. At least we have everything we need for the pudding, yes?
Petabe asked encouragingly.
That's one thing we don't have to worry about. Ah, no, that is the worst of all.
Jean clicked his tongue.
A simple bluebottle fly will not do, no, not for this. Monsieur Ryu.
He turned to face him, drawing himself up.
I must request your assistance once again. In the castle's waterworks lurk many insect monsters. Please, hunt down 3 of them and bring their meat to me for the cooking. First, a giant jumbo worm, they are aquatic and predatory. Second, a bull red cockroach, search for a pack of blue cockroaches, as they will be led by a red bull. And third, one of the legendary gold flies. Of course.
Petabe smacked a fist into her palm.
With a gold fly, your pudding will be irresistible.
Ryu fought to keep from making a face, and glanced at the others. Cat was holding her stomach again, and Nina looked ill. Sten was putting on a brave face, but it had a decidedly green tinge, and Rand was obviously, deliberately not paying attention.
We aren't going to have to eat this stuff, are we? No, there will be judges.
Petabe smiled, understanding, and for that alone he almost forgave her for everything.
Sima cuisine is difficult to get used to. I'll make sure the cooks prepare you something you're all comfortable with for your other meals, as well as at the banquet. Surely you will try at least a taste, yes?
Jean offered.
I assure you, my cooking is unequaled. We'll get your bugs for you,
Cat said hastily, moving past that.
Waterworks, right? We should be able to find that. Early tomorrow morning, then,
Ryu agreed.
That should give you enough time to cook everything. Well, if we're gonna have an early morning.
Sten stroked the neck of a wine bottle speculatively.
Maybe we should enjoy some downtime while we have it. Can't argue with that one,
Rand agreed. The evening went well, thanks to Petabe's generosity with the wine. After a few cups, even Ryu was willing to admit it wasn't that bad. Their dinner, much to general relief, turned out to mainly consist of excellently cooked fish, which Cat enjoyed almost as much as Nina and Jean did the wine. By the time they were ready to turn in, everybody was in a good humor, even Petabe, who seemed greatly cheered by a drink or 3. Eventually, servants escorted them to individual guestrooms, and Ryu practically threw himself onto the ridiculously soft bed before falling asleep. Power. We need your power. God needs your power. Give yourself to our God. Pray to God. Praise God. Sacrifice your bodies and souls to God. You are destined to become God's power. When he woke up, a tray had been left in his room with hot coffee and breakfast. A note had been surreptitiously written on his napkin. He read it as he ate. Bad news, it said. The cooks are all helping the imposter, they're in his pocket. One of them sneaked Jean's meal plan to him, and he says he'll use the same main ingredients to prove his talent beyond a doubt. And because they're my favorites, gag me with a rapier. He'll have men looking for a gold fly too, watch out for them. With the cooks doing his work for him, this will be closer than I'd like. We need those ingredients. The fate of all Sima rests in your hands. Good luck. Petabe.
Melodramatic little cuss, ain't she?
Sten commented when he showed them the note after they'd all met up outside their rooms.
She's got a point, though,
Nina said thoughtfully.
Jean will have to give his absolute best in order to win this now. So we have to dodge some goons.
Cat shrugged.
Hey, even if they find the gold fly first, all we have to do is persuade them to let us have it. No point in wasting any more time, then,
Rand noted.
Shall we? Yup.
Ryu nodded firmly.
Let's go hunt some bugs, people.
During the previous evening, Patabe and Jean had explained how to reach the waterworks. A secret panel behind the portrait of King Maximilian the Psychotic in the Hall of Paintings led them to a balcony over a huge pit filled with mechanical workings leading up to the windmills atop the roof, with man-sized buckets on chains going down empty on the left before coming back up full of water on the right.
I don't know about this,
Rand said dubiously.
Are we sure this is safe? You guys should be fine, but I'm not exactly a lightweight. If they can hold that much water, you'll be fine,
Nina assured him.
The water's heavier than you are. I don't know.
The big man continued to grumble, but in the end they managed to get him to hop into one of the descending buckets. Ryu was next, followed by Kat and Sten. Nina, of course, simply floated down on her wings. Descending below the castle's ground level, they hopped off onto a maintenance platform before they actually hit the water and lit some lanterns they'd been provided with, then carefully crept past an ivy-covered wall and through a door into the tunnels, keeping their eyes and ears open for company.
Help!
A Simon-accented voice shrieked, and they all jumped.
Mon Dieu! It's...
The scream died off into a horrible croak.
What the hell?
Ryu growled as they broke into a run. Rounding a corner, they found a scene of hideous carnage. 3 dead soldiers were lying on the floor of the tunnel before them, their chests horrible, gory impact craters, and a 4th was flailing with his spear at a tiny blur of golden light that was whizzing around him.
Ha 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 ha! Idiots!
A high-pitched voice shrieked.
You thought you could capture me? Fools! As if you scum could ever do that in a million years!
Before they could move to stop it, the golden blur ripped through the unfortunate guard's chest, and he collapsed, choking on his own blood. Darting back, the streak of light hovered still in the air, allowing them to finally see it clearly. It was a golden fly, actually glittering in the dim light from their lanterns.
Hey! Was that all? Bored now? Hey! More schmucks! You wish, creep!
Ryu snarled.
Don't care if they were our enemies, you're going down.
As the fly blasted towards him, he cut it out of the air, and it slammed into the floor, bouncing off before hovering again.
You rat!
It taunted him, although it seemed to be wobbling in the air a little.
As if that could hurt me. I'll show you the difference in our strabo.
It dodged back, narrowly avoiding Kat's staff.
Nice try. I'm not that easy to swat, hey.
One of Sten's knives grazed it as it hastily tilted to one side.
Watch it, furball. You could have oi.
Avoiding a fireball from Nina, followed by Rand's fists, it backed away quickly, but kept chattering.
What's wrong with you guys? You're actually not bad. For a bunch of clowns. We're professionals,
Kat explained with a smirk, advancing again.
And you're on the menu tonight. Piss off.
The gold fly shot back.
As if I'd ever let idiots like you catch me. Just try and keep up. Ha 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 ha.
Before they could stop it, it darted away down the tunnel.
After it.
Sten called.
Wait.
Rand bent down next to the last of the soldiers.
This guy's still alive. If I can just heal him. Don't bother,
Nina advised him quietly as the soldier coughed up more blood.
It won't take. He's too far gone for magic to save him now. The prince.
The soldier choked out, grasping the front of Rand's toga.
He sent us down here to look for the gold fly, but he never told us what kind of a monster it was. Please, you have to stop him. He threatened our families. If he learns that we've failed him, he's not going to last the night,
Ryu promised him, bending down to clasp the man's hand.
One way or another. He's gone before the sun rises tomorrow. Thank you.
The soldier said quietly, and died. Releasing his hand, Ryu closed his eyes, and both he and Rand stood up.
That thing is dead,
the big man growled, and nobody disagreed. Continuing down the tunnel, they emerged onto a long wooden walkway over a massive underground lake. From far across it, a glimmer of gold sparkled.
Hey, the dummies are following me.
The goldfly shouted across the cavern.
Over here, suckers. This way. Come on, come and get me. Ha 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 ha. Anybody else have a bad feeling about this?
Sten muttered as they walked across the lake cautiously.
Of course we do,
Rand told him.
What else are we gonna do, though? Did anybody else hear something splash?
Ryu asked, frowning.
Something big. You too.
Cat looked over the side.
I don't see anything, though. It's not magical, whatever it is,
Nina murmured.
I don't sense anything. Now.
The goldfly shrieked suddenly.
Perfect. Go get him, Shiad. Shiad.
Everybody asked in worried unison before the water exploded, and the gigantic worm attacked. It was a horror even larger than the terrapin had been, 20 feet of length, rearing out of the water in fleshy, spherical brown segments with their backs covered in thick pink chitin, like natural spiked armor. Its head was an eyeless abomination, 3 body segments joined together by web-like pink tissue, each tipped with a pincer around the hideous maw. Bent like a snake about to strike, it observed them sightlessly before attacking, spraying jets of steam from behind its head to propel it into Rand with incredible force.
Duh.
The big man grunted, bracing it with his arms for a moment before they were shoved aside and the head rammed into his chest, smashing him to the floor.
Get off him, asswipe!
Cat yelled, flipping into the air and bringing her staff down on the joint behind the beast's head, between plates of carapace. With the hissing sound of steam, it retreated slightly, then pulled back further as Ryu scored a hit with his sword at the same point. Raising itself back out of their reach, it prepared for another strike, then thrashed wildly in pain as Nino lashed at both it and the water below with lightning.
Shit, look at this thing!
Sten growled, hands pressed together as he cast a fireball, which sank into the monster's flesh with a horrible burning smell, although the worm itself didn't even seem to notice.
This is not good. Nah, we can take this ugly mug.
Cat grinned savagely.
At least, we don't have to eat shit.
The worm lunged again with just as much power, crushing her smaller body brutally. When it pulled back, she was flat on the walkway, unmoving.
Cat!
Ryu roared.
Ryu!
Nina snapped.
Electricity! The thunder form!
He didn't waste any time saying anything more, but summoned up the now familiar power within him, willing it to take the shape of lightning. It came at his command, electricity rushing through his blood and bones with a metallic, tingling sensation that shifted his body, sprouted claws and horns and wings, and grew tail and scales. The transformation seemed almost instantaneous. In only a moment, he stood before the worm as a thunder whelp, and smote it with his rage. The monstrosity flailed, its steam-like hissing rising to a shriek of agony, as the whelp's breath poured electrical magic into water and worm alike. As his energy died, it fell forward, collapsing onto the walkway. Reverting to human form, he fell forward as well, just as limp and exhausted as when he had fought Nimufo. To his horror, he saw the worm stir again, rising back up and focusing on him before jettisoning more steam.
Ah, no,
Ryu muttered as he saw the sledgehammer head rush forward.
No sail!
Cat whooped as she sprang over him, smashing the side of its head joint with her staff. In doing so, she both compounded the previous wound and knocked its aim aside, and it rammed its head harmlessly into the walkway to Ryu's left. Before it could pull back, Sten and Rand had both climbed onto its neck, the former slashing viciously with both knives while hanging on with his legs and the latter simply clutching it, weighing it down so that it couldn't rise again. Rushing past Ryu, Cat joined them, and Nina hovered overhead, firing non-elemental energy blasts through a focusing ring on her index finger. Groaning, Ryu forced himself to his feet despite the screaming exhaustion and joined in with his sword. It wasn't long before the gigantic beast ceased to move. Even then, they didn't stop until the joint had been completely severed, and the corpse of the worm slithered limply back into the depths, leaving the head lying on the walkway in a pool of disgusting goo.
Remind me never to get a job in a slaughterhouse in this country,
Sten muttered, examining hid knives with distaste.
I don't believe this.
The golden fly yelled from the far end of the cavern.
They beat Big Shiad.
After a moment, it laughed hysterically again.
Ha 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 ha. Guess he was just a big wimp. Come on, suckers. You're killing me, here. That thing is really starting to piss me off,
Cat growled, resting her staff on her shoulder and glancing that way.
Starting.
Ryu commented, then held his head. The exhaustion wasn't fading.
Ow. Here, try this,
Nina suggested, handing him a small pouch. Opening it, he found a number of dried, dark berries.
I'm guessing it's something like magic depletion. One of these should restore your stores. I think you've told me before that you don't have much. I don't,
Ryu admitted, eyeing the berries.
These are the same ones Ray used, right? Wise fruit, yes.
She nodded.
But only one won't put you in any danger, it'll just taste foul. Any smart mage carries a few in case of emergencies. Do they?
Rand asked, sounding slightly awkward.
Guess I'd better get some, then. Ah ha ha. Whatever you say,
Ryu conceded, trying one of the berries. Foul was an understatement. As soon as it touched his tongue, he felt like he had just been kicked in the teeth by a mule. Despite the pain, he managed to choke it down, then coughed and blinked as normal feeling quickly returned to his body.
Wow, that stuff really works. Did you think I'd carry it if it didn't?
Nina asked archly.
Don't overdo it, though. I'm sure it's unhealthy to transform into a dragon twice without actually resting. I'd rather you not. I'll try,
Ryu promised.
Hopefully I won't need to again down here. Come on, we can get some meat off of this thing on our way back. Let's nail that fly.
As they continued to the end of the walkway, he glanced at Kat.
You had me worried there for a moment. I thought you were really messed up. I was,
she admitted wryly.
Completely out. Thank Rand for waking me back up. Thank Ray, you mean,
the big man clarified.
He's the one who taught me that renew spell. Ah, geez, now where are we?
They had stepped into a large, dark room with no water for the torchlight to reflect off of.
Here,
Nina murmured, raising her hands.
Let me.
A fireball appeared, hovering in the air instead of flying at a target, and lit the cavern up. They all looked forward. 5 man-sized blue roaches stared back, then started making strange eeking noises.
Ah no!
The gold fly wailed mockingly from further ahead.
Gotta get away, gotta get away. Ha 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 ha. As if. Linus's gang will show you scum what's up. One each.
Ryu yelled.
Take 'em fast and hard.
As the roaches charged, he met the second one with a slash to the top of its head. His sword buried itself in the bug's carapace, and with a louder eek, it kept coming, ramming him in the legs and knocking him over. Ignoring a sudden sense of déjà vu, he went with the most simple approach, and simply stabbed it over and over until it stopped clawing at him and expired, falling off. Standing back up, he glanced at the others, and saw to his pleasure that they were handling themselves equally well. Kat had smashed the head of her enemy, and although it seemed that hadn't been enough to kill it, she was stomping on the wriggling remnants, clearly intending to do so until it stopped moving. Rand was crushing his in a mighty bear hug, apparently no longer caring about the cleanliness of his toga after all the worm goo, and Nina had just bisected hers with what looked like the second slice of air blades. Sten, for some reason, was riding his roach like a pony, although the stab wounds on the bug and bright red blood covering his knives proved that he wasn't just horsing around.
Good work, people,
Ryu told them once the last roach had perished.
We're really shaping up recently. Now, Jean said a pack of.
He trailed off as, from a dark corner of the room, a huge red roach scuttled out, even larger than the one he and Bao had saved Nero from.
Never mind. Not again. Monsieur Linusa, I presume?
Sten asked cheerfully.
Eek eek,
the giant roach replied in a bass so deep, it made the noises sound sarcastic. It charged them, then recoiled as Nina and Sten both flung fireballs into its face, burning deep through the carapace. Growling, it recovered and barreled down on Kat, who jumped out of the way at the last moment, dealing it a punishing blow with her staff as she leaped aside that knocked it over. Ryu's sword proved just as effective, ripping into its exposed underside. The giant cockroach flipped back over, kicking Ryu into a wall, but by then Rand was there. Attacking the big man, it smashed him into his back, but his arms held it regardless, even as it ripped at him. Sensing his plan, the other 4 all piled onto the momentarily helpless bug, tearing into it with sword and knife and staff and spell until it died.
Ow!
Rand grunted, healing himself before shoving the dead bug off of him.
Sucker had spunk, I'll give it that.
Looking around at them, he frowned.
I need to pay more attention. Looks like most of you needed that more than I did. Hell of a day. Why don't you use magic more often?
Nina asked Sten as healing spells showered them all.
You seem fairly talented with it. Spark and Bomb are the only spells I know.
He shrugged.
And I probably only managed those because Highlanders seem to have a natural affinity for air and fire. I've barely got any magic power, two or three more would pretty much wipe me out. I see,
she murmured.
Have you ever thought about trying to learn higher level offensive magic in those elements, then? Heh.
He glanced away.
Who'd teach a bum like me that kind of stuff, hey?
Without waiting for an answer, he continued down the tunnel.
Anyways, we've still got one last bug to catch. We can carve this one up on the way back too. Let's move, people.
He froze suddenly then, and glanced back at Ryu.
I mean. If that's okay with you, boss. Seems logical to me,
Ryu said calmly, ignoring the strange behavior. Whatever it was, Sten wouldn't want to talk about it.
The sooner we nab that fly, the sooner we're out of this pit. I heard that.
The fly screamed back at them.
You people are real pests, you know that? Bug off and leave me alone, or else I'm going to lose my temper. Then you'll really be what the hell? A dead end? Bullshit. And that's our cue.
Cat crowed as they all broke into a run. They found the fly waiting for them at the end of the tunnel, hovering in the air.
Alright, asshole. Time to pay the piper. I pay in pain, chumps.
The fly jeered.
I'll give you credit where it's due, you're the first idiots who ever managed to chase me this far. But a loser is a loser no matter how persistent. Don't forget who you're dealing with. I, the mighty Gonobue 13, never die. I am invincible. Oh, just shut the hell up already.
Ryu yelled, temper rising. He was suddenly, coldly, sick of everything that had happened down there, and before he knew it he was transforming again, willing himself to become a whelp of ice. The fly, stunned by his metamorphosis, didn't even try to dodge as he spewed freezing breath at it, the blisteringly cold magic freezing it solid. It dropped to the floor, motionless, as he turned back and hit the floor approximately the same way.
Damn.
The fly whispered.
A light dragon? Impossible. To think that I would be slain in the same way as my revered ancestor, Gonburu. I never even had the chance to avenge him. Well, that's one way to do that,
Cat noted, ignoring the fly.
You okay, Ryu? No, but I'll live,
he grunted, accepting a hand from her back to his feet.
Should I take another one of those berries? I wouldn't,
Nina advised.
We seem to be done with the unpleasantness for now, and there's time enough to rest before the feast. A nap would be better. Maybe just a quick one,
he admitted.
Once we get back upstairs. Let's get back there and cut up some, meat.
The roach meat was thick and rich, shiny with fat, while the worm was tough and lean. Ryu and Sten carved huge chunks off of both, and they wrapped them in cloth before heading back up. Closing the lids on descending buckets ensured that they would be empty for passengers on the way back up. Once they were back in the castle proper, they quickly headed to the kitchen and found Jean sitting in a chair, humming, on one side. The other was a maelstrom of frantic creepers, as the entire kitchen staff and the prince labored at their own cooking.
Très bien.
Jean exclaimed as they walked in.
I can smell them already. Well done, mon amis. With these, I can prepare a meal such as Simafort has never seen in 1,000 years. Simafort hasn't been here for 1,000 years, Jean,
Patate remarked as they set the meat down on the table. She had been pacing back and forth frantically. Turning to them, she smiled.
Thank you all so much. Tonight, we'll finish this once and for all. Glad to help, Your Highness,
Ryu said wearily. Gathering his will, he glanced over at the prince as if he was feeling completely fine.
How about you, Your Highness? Got everything you need? If you don't, we might be able to scrounge it up for you. For the right price. Kawadara.
The prince said tightly, obviously struggling to control his temper.
My ingredients are all fine. If you have some time on your hands, you might do well to help that fool with his cooking. I'd say he could use all that he can get. You.
He whirled on a terrified cook.
The head chef. I said thinly sliced. Get another one wrong and you'll be the substitute ingredient. Live. Temper, Your Highness,
Ryu tisked.
Actually, I'm going to go catch a nap for now. I'll see you at the banquet. Like the princess said. Tonight's the night we see who's really got what it takes. I'm looking forward to it. As am I.
The prince smiled, but his eyes held murder, and worse, in a boiling maelstrom.
Indeed, tonight we will end this. Amusement.
His voice dropped, and for just a moment, his accent departed again.
Don't try to escape. Escape?
Ryu scoffed.
From what? Have a nice day, everybody. See you tonight, Jean, Patabe.
The five of them strolled casually out, and made their way back to their rooms, idly listening in on the chatter of the courtiers and servants as they passed by. From what they heard, it seemed that everybody was in agreement. One way or another, the banquet that night would be the end of it all. At the opera tonight.